Hey friends, hope the morning's treating you well. Hope you got your coffee if you like coffee. I left mine inside, but that's all right. I wanted to talk this morning about Keith Richards. Keith Richards was electrocuted on stage back in 1965, and I swear I thought I remembered reading this story in his book Life, and I went thumbing all through there and could not find it anywhere in there, but it's a big thick book. And I've read the book and I've also listened to the audio book while on tour later on. But the story goes, this is a story from the Sacramento Bee. It was originally published there, and then I found it online at Huffington Post. It says, a local businessman, Mick Martin, attended the concert. Then a starstruck 17-year-old senior at West Sacramento's James Marshall High School. A former music critic of the Sacramento Union, Martin recently recounted a scene that prompted Richards to tell the New York Times while promoting his 2010 memoir, Life, that my most spectacular moment was in Sacramento. Now, if he was saying that when he was hyping the book, he had to mention it in the book, but I couldn't find it going back. It says the Stones were 4 songs into their second show of the day in front of a reported crowd of 5,000 fans, many of them shrieking teenage girls. Richards, dressed in brown pants and a white sweater, grazed the neck of his guitar against an ungrounded microphone stand. In a flash of blue sparks, Richards went down. The loud electrical crack left concert promoter Jeff Hewson wondering if it was a gunshot, saying later, "Oh no, someone shot Keith." But Richards had been shocked, not shot, and the electrical surge fried his guitar strings. I don't really know what that means, to fry your guitar strings, but this Jagger, wearing gray pants, a white button-down shirt, and black vest, stood over an unconscious Richards. The curtain dropped, ending the show and sparking chaos and confusion in the arena. I see what you did there with the sparking chaos. Has anybody been shocked by a microphone while they were playing on stage? It seems like this used to happen all the damn time, and I can't remember it happening in 20 years or so now. But like back in the 90s, you'd be playing electric guitar, and sound check, you'd step up to the microphone, and man, the arc, sometimes I would see an arc coming from the microphone and just like hitting my mouth, and it felt a lot of times like somebody like punching you in the lip, or at least flicking it really, really hard, and your grandma hitting you in the lip with a switch. That should bring back some memories for some of you. But it used to happen a lot, and the thing is, you're supposed to go back and flip your ground switch on your amp. And I'd go flip that, and that rarely did anything. But I remember carrying around a bunch of those microphone, those fuzzy microphone wind screens that you would just slip over the top of a microphone, an SM58. I would always try to have 2 or 3 of those in the back of my amp, just in case we ended up in one of those. And I remember a couple times not having them, and the venue would have one, and it would be like red, yellow, or blue, and look like a clown nose on top of a SM58. So you always wanted to bring your own black one. But do you guys remember that? Am I just hallucinating? It seemed like that used to happen a lot back when. Maybe I'm in more legitimate venues these days, and those grounding problems aren't an issue. Maybe you guys are still dealing with that. It says, I was right there in the front row in front of Keith, Martin said last week by phone. I saw the blue light. I literally saw Keith fly into the air backwards. I thought he was dead. I was horrified. We all were. Silence fell over the crowd. Martin said he rushed outside and into the back of Memorial Auditorium. He wanted to catch a glimpse of Richards to see if he was still alive. They carried him out with oxygen tubes, and he was semi-conscious. Martin said, I patted him on the shoulder and said, I hope you're going to be okay. It's to Keith Richards. Richards was rushed to a city emergency room years later. Richards recalled a doctor standing over him saying, Well, they either wake up or they don't. That would not feel good. According to the guitarist, another physician suggested that the rubber sole of Richard's new Hush Puppy's suede boots saved the musician's life. Richards recovered and the Stones took the stage the next night in San Jose. While Sacramento isn't a stop on the 50 and Counting tour, the band used to make regular visits to the capital city. It goes on and on. It says that the ticket prices that night were $2.75 to $4.75, which is pretty damn amazing. I think the Stones cost a couple dollars more than that these days. They've written quite a few all-time classic songs since then also. I am curious if you guys out there gigging and gals have had some pretty good shocks. I've literally seen arcs coming from a thing, but I've never seen anybody fall down like they were, shot from a gun. I can only imagine the fear. There's some other thing that I read that said when he woke up, Mick was like, "What are you gonna do? How are you doing?" or something like that. And Keith said something like, "How are you feeling?" He's like, "I'm trying to figure out what we're gonna do for an encore after that." Or some kind of a quote like that. But while I was looking for that, I came across a couple other things I think would be worth sharing and were interesting. I remember hearing this story when it came out at least 10 years ago, but there was a musician in California, some town called Saugus in Southern California. I don't know if that's a suburb of LA or whatever. There was a musician named Lauren White who went to a flea market, and she was looking through old photographs, like we've all done, at least a lot of us, just looking at vintage photographs. And she found like 24 photos of the Rolling Stones. And she thought, when she went ahead and bought them, she wasn't sure what they were. She went ahead and bought them and later realized that these are unknown photos. These were just somebody's snapshots that they took. And I'll read a little bit of that. It says, Lauren White, a local musician, found the rare photos at a flea market in Saugus. This is Lauren. There was a stand full of memorabilia in which I found a box full of photos, including a stack of snapshots of the Rolling Stones. I didn't know what I had or that they hadn't been seen until further research. The composition of the photos were so beautiful and the band was so candid, young and innocent, that I knew I had to show them. These images show the band before they became international icons, at play in motel pools and along the road during their U.S. tour in 1965. Several photos show the band founder Brian Jones diving and swimming, perhaps foreshadowing his death by drowning 4 years later. White teamed up with George Augusto Dilettante's owner to display the images. They put these on display in different gallery exhibitions, which they probably sold prints of these. And we spent a lot of time researching this, said Augusto, not only to find if they'd been published, but to try to find who actually shot them. We're hoping that they'll come out of the woodworks. So far, the duo was able to get the photos in front of the Stones manager from the time, but he had no idea who might have taken them. These photos are beautiful. I'm going to put a link down below. I'll put it in the comments there to where you can go see them. I'm assuming, because of what they are, that they've probably been sold and they're being protected. You can see the photos on the internet, but I think that something like this would probably get me in trouble if I put it in this video, so I'm not going to put it in here. But I will put a link to where you can see them down below. And they're beautiful photos. And there's a hotel pool in Savannah, Georgia, and then I guess there's some other stuff in Florida. But whoever it was a photographer with some skill and technique. And when you think in 1965, one, it's beautiful. They're all washed out vintage photos. And in 1965, you had to be pretty good. Like the barrier of entry was a lot higher to be able to take good photographs, way higher. Now you can just get out your phone and you can at least make serviceable photographs. But these were really nice, candid shots, like a headshot of Keith looking right at you. And I don't know, there's some nice stuff. And then there's one of Brian doing a handstand on this side of the pool, and you see this big vintage motel sign off to his side. It's really nice and beautiful. But yeah, I have to believe that would be a pretty great find. And I wonder how many people would even recognize it's the Stones since they were so young. And I think I read that when these photos were taken was a month before Satisfaction came out as a single. So it might have been their last moments of not being like megastars, just being able to hang out at the pool and nobody knew who they were. And I don't know, nice photos though. And like I said, I'll put a link down below. So one more thing I want to share with you. While I'm searching for this Keith Richards getting electrocuted story, you see something and like catches your eye and start paying attention to it. And one of the things I saw was this poster or this ad, looks like a newspaper ad for a concert that the Rolling Stones were doing in Alabama. I think it's Birmingham, Alabama. But I see this package bill, and it says Friday night at Legion Field, and it's the Rolling Stones, the Beach Boys, Cannibal and the Headhunters, and the Righteous Brothers. Also on the bill, Marty Robbins. How cool is that? Marty Robbins on a bill with the Stones and the Beach Boys. And Sonny James, Del Reeves, Archie Campbell. Remember we brought up Archie Campbell last week when Brenda was telling us about the flood at the Opry. And Archie Campbell from Hee Haw and Skeeter Davis. And it's at Legion Field. And I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know what Legion Field was, so I had to Google it. And then I was pretty impressed that it was where the Alabama Crimson Tide used to play. 71,000 people. So they put on this package show in a place that held 71,000 people, and I'm assuming it sold out because I think they did 2 shows, is what I read. But I found this article from AL.com, it's Alabama.com. I'm not sure what that's from, but Chuck Leavell, Rolling Stones keyboardist from 1982 to present and Tuscaloosa native. This is from him. He says, I was all of 14 years old when the Stones played that show, but I had already pretty much made up my mind that music would be a career for me. I had seen lots of bands play around Tuscaloosa, but I had never been to a stadium show before, and it was quite a strong experience to see all those famous bands play in that setting. So yeah, it made me realize that there were some big possibilities in a musical career, and it was exciting to see and hear how they presented themselves to the audience. I don't recall actually thinking I would someday get to play with them, though, but looking back, it was a fortuitous experience for me. It was sort of a cavalcade of stars show. If memory serves, it was the Righteous Brothers, the Beach Boys, and maybe Marty Robbins. I can't remember, and of course the Stones. The sets were all relatively short, only maybe 20 to 30 minutes each. Mostly just the hits they had at the time. Of course, I was a big Beatles and Stones fan, as well as a fan of most all the British Invasion, so I was stoked to hear the Stones play live. I remember them doing Little Red Rooster, which blew me away. Brian Jones was still in the band, and I thought they were all so very cool. Their look, the moves, and of course the music. I was fascinated with most of the British Invasion bands, and we covered a lot of songs by all those artists. And as for the Stones, I remember one of the first songs I learned on the guitar was The Last Time. Loved that one. And of course we did our rendition of Satisfaction. Last Time is one of my favorite Stones songs. I really love that period. I love a few periods of the Stones, but I love when they still thought they were a blues band, and maybe they still think they're a blues band. I don't know. But the last time, stuff like that, I really dig. He says, I met Charlie Watts at a party in London back in '73 when the Allman Brothers did a show at Nebworth Park. We had a short conversation, and I'm sure I mentioned seeing the Stones play in Birmingham. Then during my audition with the band in '81, I remember mentioning it to all of them. They did recall the show, and we have reminisced about it a few times since then. The call came out of the blue for me to do the audition in '81. It was Bill Graham, the celebrated promoter, that suggested me to the band. While the audition went well, I didn't get the gig right away, and that didn't come until the next year when they toured in Europe. When that call did come, I was, as you might imagine, electrified. Are you kidding? I get to play with the Stones? Electrified. Goes back to our original story there. It was sort of like the Tide winning the national championship, coming home to my backyard to play Legion Field with the Stones. So he got to come back and see them, or play with them, on the same stadium where he first saw them, which is freaking great. I had to pause for a second as a car went by with some loud music, so a weird edit, and I apologize. It says, coming home to my backyard to play Legion Field with the Stones. A dream come true is about the only way I can put it. And yes, I did send a limo for my mom and her friend and have a great picture of all of us together just before we went on stage. The next day, I rode back to Tuscaloosa with her. My pal, Scoots Linden, accompanied us. After we dropped them off, we went to Archibald's Barbecue in Northport and bought a ton of ribs, then to Dreamland and did the same. When we got back to Tutwiler, I called up everyone to come to the bar and sample Alabama's best. A great memory. We still talk about that. That's freaking great, man. Do we have, I think we have some people from Alabama. Have you guys been to, where was it? Archibald's Barbecue? I'm guessing that's a big deal down there. In Northport, and Dreamland, and did the same. Is that a barbecue joint also? And then Tutwiler. Any of you guys from down there? It's been a long time since I've been to Alabama, and I never rooted for the Tide, I don't think. But my buddy John Bird, great country singer in Nashville, and a friend, was Bear Bryant's paper boy when he was a little kid. And I'm going to have to get John on here one of these days. But so he's my window into that world there in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa at least. But I just figured I would share that with you guys. And I don't know, I hope things are good with y'all. It's kind of turned into being Stones Week here on the channel. It's completely unintentional, but I've been listening to a lot of Stones and reading some stuff about them. And when I looked up that electrocution story, I kept seeing these side tracks that were fun, and it's fun to take the side roads every now and then. And I'm gonna leave you with a video of my friend Minnie. She's my favorite squirrel, and she comes out here on the porch and sits with me, and I feed her peanuts. And I shared this video a few days ago on the Patreon, and like with the channel members. And those are the people that make all of this possible. So if you enjoy this channel and you enjoy the Kenny Vaughn stuff, all the stuff that I throw up onto the channel, upload, you might want to help support it through Patreon. If not, that's cool. But I'll put a link down in the comments, and I'll leave that video of Minnie, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Much love to you.